So when you were going through high school and then making that transition into college, what were the systems like mentally, physically, performance wise that you kind of started defining for yourself when you really started to get to the results? Because your senior year took third in the state, right?
Yeah.
And then you had you have a phenomenal story, which we'll hash on after this, about you getting into college, into
Yeah.
Columbia. You want to
Yeah.
break that down?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, going from like what changed that senior year was when, so, bringing up back to that time of like, like when I loved it and when I committed. I say those moments are pretty like near simultaneous, or, at the same time. And it definitely happened my junior year. And it was after states my junior year, and I had just lost. And you're just sitting there, and I wasn't upset because I actually didn't really know what I expected from that season. But I remember I was just sitting there, and then also at the time, high school coach for Premise was Matt Ulrich, who another great guy. I'm sitting there, and I had Ulrich and Filato come, and they sat next to me, and we were just rehashing on the year, and they're talking, and they're like, "Yep, like this is great." Kyle Cochran was going to wrestle in the state finals that year. He's going to wrestle against Justin Beardenful, who's another like a three-time finalist at the time. Now it was that was his fourth time in the state finals. Kyle had lost to him two times already, and I remember sitting there with the coaches, and I was like, "Oh, like yeah, like how's Kyle doing? He's in the back end ready? Like da da da." They're like, "Yeah, like he's doing good. We're here to talk about you. Recapping the season, da da da." And that wasn't even the conversation that did it. Ulrich and Filato went to go get up to go help Cochran. And I'm sitting there, and I was like, "Oh, like Ulrich, like, well, what do you think? Like, he just lost to Justin twice, like literally back to back, like 2 weeks in districts and regions." And Ulrich is just sitting there, and he goes, "No, I know he's going to win." And I was like, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Well," he's like, I've seen the work that Kyle puts in." He's like, "And I know he's going to win." And Ulrich is a straight shooter, and he's like, he's like, "I'll tell you what." He goes, "If you put in that work too," he's like, "I'm sure I'd know you'd win too." And it was just like that, like little, like that moment of just talking with them and those things was like, that was when I knew I had to be committed if I wanted to be a success. Because how cool is that to have someone have that much confidence in you? And lo and behold, Kyle won. So it's one of those things where if you have that body of work and people know that you're going to be successful, like that was where I wanted to be. I wanted people to know that I was like, but like Thanos, like I was inevitable. Like I wanted to be that. I wanted to be inevitable that I was going to win. And going into that senior year, things that changed, like when I was committed, I mean, I was doing the extra stuff. I stayed after practice every single day, and I mean, and this was something that Ulrich did with me and Cochran, and we would stay after practice every day, and we had like these like two songs that we'd play every day, and we would literally just do suicide sprints wall to wall for the duration of the songs, and then we'd hang those up, and then we'd do 10 minutes of just an extra like stance and motion, or we do like stance and motion things, and then we do like mat returns, escapes, like the hard stuff that like you didn't harp on during practice, like things that didn't really come up a lot, and we would just do those for extra time after practice, and it just became like habitual, and then it was like it wasn't a practice unless I finished with those things and did the extras. And another thing that was big was like journaling and keeping track of like my mental of like where I was at. And we had great tournaments that year. We went to Beast of the East. I placed at Beast of the East that year. We went to Escape the Rock. We did as much of the bigger things as we could to try and get us prepped for that. And I remember going into states fully thinking that I was going to win like states. I was fully convinced in my head. It was also one of like the stranger things where like I like knew I was going to win states. That's the only way I could put it. Like I completely wholeheartedly thought I was going to win states, and I was like a seventh seed. I wasn't even like a crazy high seed, and I was so convinced that I was better than everybody in the bracket. I didn't think there was anybody that could beat me. And then I got in the quarterfinals, and I was wrestling Chad Watt from Woodstown, and I was up like 3-2 with 20 seconds left maybe. And I I know exactly how it happened, but I just remember I lost. I got taken down like 20 seconds left, and he rode me out, and I just remember like laying on the mat, and like the ref's like, "Hey, you got to get up," and I was like, "Just give me a minute, like fuck you." I was, I was, I was like, I wasn't even pissed at that point yet. I was shocked, and then walking off the mat, I I freaked out. I've never done anything like that in my life. Like crying after a match is one thing. I remember I freaked the fuck out. It was funny. I went like backstage, and it's like a convention center. So I went backstage, and there was like, I don't know, like construction stuff going back there. Like there was a bucket full of like construction hats and stuff. And I remember like going in there, and I just took everything back there, and I started throwing shit. Like I just started literally freaking out, throwing shit like a toddler tantrum. And a convention center guy comes back there. He's like, "Hey, like, stop that, or you're gonna get kicked out." I was like, "Fuck you! I don't want to be here." And I like, what? I remember I walked out and I walked back to hotel. I walked out. I walked down the boardwalk in my singlet and shoes back to the hotel. I didn't even take anything off, and I laid down in the hotel. And obviously, I had to go wrestle in like an hour or like 2 hours or something. And no one could get like I didn't have my phone. No one was getting in contact with me or anything like that. I remember Filato came to the room, and he was like, "Get your ass up right now! You're about to be on the board." Da da da. And I told him I don't want to wrestle. I'm done. I was like, I don't want to finish the tournament. I was like, I came here to win. I was like, I can't win anymore. I was like, I don't want to wrestle. And being like a little baby, like all that. And through, I had a conversation with Filato, and then I was talking to him for like 5 minutes. And then actually my mom and dad showed up at the room. He called them to try and get me out of my funk. And I think it was talking to my mom and dad. And it just, that really woke me up. Like trying to like representing them. That's where it comes down to. At the end of the day, I'm not just representing myself. I represent a standard of like my family, my parents, and to me, it's like especially my dad. Like how would that look to everybody else if it's like Brian Bonino did this? Like, oh, like man, his parents let him do this, or man, Bobby, but like I didn't want that reflection on them. They're raised me so much better than that. I remember I made it down to the match on like last call, like and they're like Brian Bonino to Matt Six or whatever. I made it down on like last call, and then yeah, that was it. That was like my round of 12 match, and I won, and then wrestled all the way back for third, and it was actually cool. Third place, the kid I lost to in the quarters ended up losing in the semis, and I got to wrestle him again for third, fourth, and I beat him like 6-1 for third. So got a little redemption, which obviously, still to this day, I wish you always wish you won states, but it was nice to get the redemption back because, I knew I was better than that guy. You're wrestling scared at that point. And, I think that was another eye opener, not to wrestle scared anymore and just try to go get it because really what do you have to lose at the end of the day? But, that was like, yeah, where I committed. And that was that, transition of really being committed at the end of high school and then on my way into college. But oh yeah, and then yeah, the college thing is interesting too. you know.